Now here's the piece that we really want you to understand that makes Esther's desire to make it an emphatic new step appropriate from our point of view. Step one is ask. And usually when you're asking, you're not anywhere near the vibrational frequency of what you want. That's why you're pleading for it. That's why you pray for it pleadingly. It's why you try so hard. It's why you offer so much effort sometimes. There's a big gap between what you want and your realization of it. But once you have awakened in the morning without an active question, instead you've just awakened and you've practiced step three. You've practiced alignment. You've practiced resonance with your source. You've practiced the feeling of well-being. You've practiced feeling good. You've practiced the absence of resistance so that you know what it feels like. After a while, usually about 30 days, some cases more, some cases less, but about 30 days of doing that. In the first 10, 20 days, you probably won't achieve it, not steadily. But once you get into the 30 and 40 and 50 days of applying this, you'll be solidly there. And then what you'll begin to notice is you can be in this place of alignment with life presenting to you options as it always does, variety as it always does, causing a question, maybe even a problem, to occur to you in the middle of this ease that you are feeling. And what you're going to begin to notice is that the vibration of allowing, the vibration of alignment, the resonance with source is so dominant within you that this problem doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like an opportunity. This problem doesn't feel like something that challenges you. It doesn't take you to your knees. It's just something that's interesting for you to contemplate. And in the absence of any vibrational resistance, as quickly as the question occurs, the answer is there too. When you reach that place that Esther wants to call step 4, step 1 and 3 are blended. She said, see, it even adds up. 3 and 1, 3 and 1, 3 and 1. So that's what we've been wanting to talk to you about in all of the days that we've been interacting with you. We want you to know that you are the creator of your own reality. But even more than that, we want you to know that you're blessed beings and that life is supposed to be working out well for you. And while it is, you don't always know it. And so we want you to stop torturing yourself with the introduction of chronic resistance and start practicing yourself into alignment that then gives you the resources, the energy that creates worlds is flowing to you and through you. And when you get hold of that notion, when you get hold of that knowing, when you know for sure that all you have to do is define what you want and then stand in a place where you don't contradict it with your own doubt, with your own memory, with your own statistics, with your own beating the drum, with your own defensiveness, with your own justification. When you've left your justification behind morning after morning after morning after morning after morning after morning after morning, and you are awakening in that wholeness that is you, and then you begin approaching life from that whole point of view, you've pushed the reset button. You've pushed the reset button, and everything in your world is going to respond differently to you now than it ever did before. We were talking with a pilot the other day on the Mediterranean cruise, and we submitted to him the logic that when his big aircraft is at 20,000 feet, it's still the same airplane. When it's at 30,000 or 40,000, in other words, it doesn't matter what altitude his plane is flying, it's the same airplane, and it's essentially doing the same thing. So we'd like to say to you, you are the same being, thinking thoughts, observing some world in some way around you. But when you choose those higher frequencies, your experience is a very different experience. So you could be as you were 10 years ago today, saying the same things, feeling the same way, and your life would be very much today like it was 10 years ago. Different places, different faces, but essentially feeling pretty much the same way. Or you could be today deliberately focusing in a new vibrational frequency, determined to align with the source within you, looking at this world through the eyes of source, appreciating chronically, rarely criticizing, feeling blessed, never victim, feeling confident and sure-footed rather than vulnerable and victim. When you change your vibrational frequency, you find an atmosphere where those like you are roaming around. And when you rendezvous with those like you have a different experience. Let's say that in a better way. You're always rendezvousing with those like you, because the law of attraction doesn't allow it to be otherwise. But when the you that you are rendezvousing with is a high-flying, good-feeling being, then what rendezvous with you feels good too.
Nice to be back. All right, so in the news lately, the Yankee pitcher Mariano Rivera, he just had an incredible career. He set the all-time ERA record the other night. And I went to the game on Sunday, and they had a ceremony for him. And celebrities and sports heroes and everybody just loves this guy. And half the people say not just because he's a great athlete and he's made our team won, because he's such a great person. And so what I see in Mariano is that he appreciates people in general. So I've been doing positive aspects of my boss, things like that, challenging things. But my question is how...
So is this pitcher retiring?
Yeah.
And how's he feeling these days about that?
That's a great question. They show the video. Now, at Yankee Stadium, he played his last game ever at Yankee Stadium, and instead of letting him pitch the last out of the game, they surprised him. Two of his closest friends came out and took the ball from him, and he cried his eyes out. And he's such a strong man, but he cried his eyes out. And he walked around, stadium waving to everybody, but he looked almost in a state of disbelief that I felt like, how could people love me this much? And also, now it's over. So it seemed like the two things.
That was the predominant vibration that is within him, is that something wonderful has come to an end. And that's really what we're talking about all day here today. This something wonderful never comes to an end. You have the ability to focus yourself in or out of it, but it never comes to an end. And that's why we ask you what that snapshot was, because it's a snapshot that doesn't serve him very well. And he was sort of set up for it. They sort of blindsided him about it, you see. Yeah. He'll carry on and he'll do extremely well because, as you say, that's who he is. So now what?
So the question I have is, as I work on appreciating my boss, how do I appreciate people in general like that? Because he seems to have a general appreciation for people in general. I mean, there's 7 billion people. It would be nice to feel appreciation from people before I meet them as they walk up.
You answered your question within the question by saying general, because it's easier to appreciate generally than it is specifically. But it's more satisfying to appreciate specifically than generally, because there's more movement in it. I'm going to give you some things that sometimes are helpful. Humans like the feeling of momentum, and sometimes will choose negative momentum over positive, slower momentum. In other words, you can be on a high-flying disc and feel peaceful and there's not a lot of momentum on it. Or you can be on a low-flying disc and feeling agitated and there's more momentum. And most people are drawn to momentum because you can feel the power in it. And we say step 4 is engaging the power and the frequency. The momentum and the frequency in combination is what that high-flying disc brings you, you see. Don't you like knowing that? So you're just sort of jockeying for position. You're just kind of paying attention to how you feel. We want you to be in that place where you are appreciating all people, because it's the only mindset that will ever give you complete freedom. As long as there are people around that are controlling the way you feel by your practice thought about them. Now that was a really tricky way. It's like they're controlling how I feel because of the way I've practiced thinking about them. So most people really need people to behave differently so that they can feel differently. But when your quest is to love them all because you are a lover, then in many cases you got to be really general. You got to be so general that they're not active in your experience, because there are a lot of people, if they get up close to you in their nowness, it'd be very difficult for you to appreciate them with the behavior that they're now offering. But you don't have to test yourself like that, you see. The way you come to loving all people is by finding someone who's lovable and focusing upon them. And let the lovable ones help you train your vibration. So what keeps people from doing that? Why do you use your noses to smell awful things? You say, oh, this tastes awful, try this. You go to great lengths to try to explain the bad experiences that you've had, as if you want to share them with others. And we say, you really don't want to, and you don't want to repeat them in your own experience either. So what have we been talking about all day today? You have control of what comes to you, but you got to get control, and you got to get it early on. And so we just start waking up and getting control and watching what happens, and waking up and getting control and watching what happens, until we are so practiced in the thoughts that we think that then we can begin to acknowledge things are really good around me, because, not accidentally. I don't feel good because accidental things are coming around me that make me feel good. I'm feeling good because I choose to feel good, and now more things that feel good are coming around me. So I want to love everybody in the world. I want to love everybody in the world. Just start with that one, because you can't focus on everybody in the world all at once anyway. That's like the story of the light board that we were talking about. So there you are, all lighted up. This is going to lead to something really good, so hang in here with us. So here you are a light on the light board, and you're feeling really good. And so other lights that are at the frequency and at the momentum of that which you are light up to, and that represents your world. Do you really find it necessary to understand or to control or to change the other unlighted lights on your board? Here's the most important thing about this light board. Are you getting the concept of it? Do you like it? Is it helpful? Here's the most important thing about it. We're talking about you lighted up, and therefore what you see. Other people on the board are lighted up differently, and the others that are lighted up with them, they can see them, you just can't. In other words, those other lights aren't out. They're just lighted differently than your lights. So when you say, I want to love all of them, we say, we think that's fine. But do you need to understand all of them? And if you did, if you focused on all of them, what do you think would happen to your light? That's the big question. Well, chances are they're lighted in a different way. Now you've got your nose in their business. You're focused upon them because you want to love them, but they're different than you are. And now you're lighting with them. And in that alignment with that, you've lost your connection with who you really are. You see what we're getting at? So it's really a bold statement to say, I want to love everything. We would just say, I want to love. And I want so much to love that I've tuned myself to the vibration of love. And now things that are easy to love are flowing into my experience. And not get into that place where you're nitpicking over what's lovable and what's unlovable, because that will take you to a different lighted board, and it will give you different experiences every time. So now let's go back to your statement. I want to love everyone. And we say, aren't you really saying, I just want to love? I want to love? Are you saying, I want to love the unlovable? I want to love the unlovable? I want to love the unlovable. What does that statement do to your frequency? Challenges it, because you introduced unlovable into the equation, and now you're not on that high-flying disc anymore. In some ways, we're making this all more complicated than it needs to be. So let's start over. You are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe, and the source within you is vibrating at a very high frequency with no resistance. And when you get in the proximity of that, in the vicinity of that, or in full immersion of that, so that you're feeling the resonance of that, you are at your best feeling and most thriving. So the hurdle that we have to overcome with so many of our physical humans is, we have to convince you that it's not only all right to feel good, and it's not only normal to feel good, but that it is not mandatory, but that it is what you predominantly are wanting. That everything is about the way you feel, and you have control over the way you feel. Just got to practice it.